Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Okay, listen. I'm a slut for a magic hammer, but I think that if you're gonna make a hammer magical, it should do something other than extra damage to Trollocs, you know?
Yeah.
It's quite boring.
Yeah, when Perrin's just, like, smashing them, and it's, like, it causes, blunt force trauma and fire damage.
And I'm like, alright, maybe that's relevant in, gaming terms.
Sure.
To have a weapon that does +1 or +2 damage.
Right.
But this is a book. I need some cinematic...
Right.
Explosions.
Explosions.
You know?
Sort of like a protective aura around the people fighting with Perrin. Some type of, bardic inspiration.
Yeah.
Just,
healing powers.
healing powers.
He should have been able to lift Galad bridal style and heal his broken ankle.
Yeah, we'll get there,
been
but
sexy.
We end this and I'm like, I think Perrin and Galad should fuck.
Yeah, Galad should have fucked every single member except Rand, because that's his half-brother.
Yeah.
So I take my words back.
Yeah.
But he should have fucked Perrin, he should have fucked Matt. He probably should have fucked Egg.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve. They had kind of like a hate
a
sex vibe
fun
going
little
on.
vibe going on. She could have had a little fling before she and Lan got married.
And that would have been extremely funny, I think, because then it would have been like, hey, I'm your half-brother. I have fucked all of your friends. And Rand's like, I haven't even fucked any of my friends.
Yeah. And God's like, well, catch up.
We'll catch up. And Rand's like, fine, I'll get your sister pregnant or whatever. Ew. Anyway, this is Everybody Hates Rand. Your friendly... Oh my gosh, that's so cute!
I am transcribing last week's episode. Sorry to interrupt. And I did so much crosstalk and so much interrupting of Emily and just excitedly agreeing with everything you were saying, and it's just bad audio quality. So I've brought this tiny monster that I bought at the Nordstrom rack. I actually went back to get him because he spoke to me, so
yeah,
it's just a little stuffed animal, and he's on my leg to remind me to not interrupt.
Well, I did just interrupt myself by squeeing over how cute he is.
He is really sort of darling.
Really, I think you have nothing to blame for. Guys, he's got that cute little monster face where he has pointy ears and one tooth coming out of his little smile. We'll put a picture of him on the internet, unless you feel that would be exploitative. I don't know.
I did just put an article to read on my to read list about a child YouTube star, which I'm fascinated to dig into.
Like a specific child, or just the trend generally?
I think it seems like this, I saw on Twitter, this specific reporter talking about it. It seems like kind of one of her areas of interest is to explore this phenomenon. I haven't read the article yet. I put it in my Safari browser to return to. But the specific article that was at the top of the reporter's list was about a specific child star, but this child star is still underage, so she reported anonymously.
Ah, gotcha.
But from what little I skimmed in the intro paragraph, her dad said something like, I'm not only your dad, I'm also your boss, so I hope he gets struck by lightning.
Bean Dad could never.
Yeah. So to return, I can post a photo of my monster son, but you guys aren't allowed to send us money over his appearance.
Yeah, we're not his boss.
Yeah.
He is his own monster little guy. He's so fucking cute.
He is really cute.
Okay, I don't remember where I was in the intro, but it's Everybody Hates Rand. your friendly neighborhood Wheelie Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Goodger.
And, I meant to look up Nakatomi Plaza, or Nakomi, as Avienda's spiritual guide is called. Did you read that chapter?
I sure did, and was like, hello?
Yeah, it's confusing. It's like, hey, who's this lady?
Yeah.
And why does she disappear? Is she a ghost?
Is she a ghost? Is she an apparition? Is she God? Who is she?
I don't know. And as far as I know, every Wheel of Time fan ever has been like, let's look at our Wheel of Time companion. We never do that.
Yeah.
Let's see if she's mentioned.
Thanks, Mitchell. You're the one who bought this for us.
A mysterious ale woman whom Avienda met in the waste. Bear told Avienda that she knew no one named Nakomi, but that it was an ancient name. That's it.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about the sort of, like, trope or archetype of, like, mythical figures appearing in sort of liminal spaces, like someone coming out of the woods or out of the desert. There's an argument to be made for the desert as a sort of liminal, archetypal, whatever it is, space. Sort of like mystical figures giving you advice. It's not out of the realm of like fantasy stuff. It just needs to be a bit more anchored, I think, in order for it to be functional.
Yeah, it feels like the authors were drawing on, we've often compared the ale to indigenous groups, and a lot of indigenous peoples have like coming of age rites and rituals that are more formalized than, other cultures' coming of age rituals. Like when my mom handed me a book that was like, here's how to use tampons. Other groups of people get to do special things.
To do fun things.
Get to do fun things, like special dances and stuff. Okay, yeah. I'm not jealous. I am jealous. And that's, so I think they're drawing upon that generalized idea of like going out into the wilderness. We saw that with Ruidaean of like, you can only go, there's all these formalized rites that you have to follow. And so the idea that you will like see things and interact with people and beings and entities that are not necessarily physically there is very like, is like a commonly reported thing. So I think that's what they're drawing from, but I think you're totally correct that it needs to be anchored in reality because none of the other ale, like Avienda will come back and be like, so what was up with this bitch? And all the ale will be like, oh. Who? And also this is the Wheel of Time where we have seen like historical, mythical figures step out of the past, literally, to interact with the main cast. Like, Avienda could be doing stuff in Teleron Riyadh, where she interacts with some, like, not Brigitte-like figure, but, like, we just don't know anything about, like, the ale mythology, except what we learned in extensive detail about the ale history. But it's not like the ale have culture heroes the way everyone else seems to have the heroes of the horn. It just feels, so what I'm trying to say is that it feels like a clumsy, like, hey, just as a reminder, the ale are inspired by indigenous groups of people, but only in that they have these specific rites and rituals.
Right.
They're not actually racialized the way so many, they are racialized, but they are not racial minorities the way actual indigenous groups are, etc., etc. It's just like a very weird thing where we're giving you the symbols of this culture without giving you any of the actual legwork to understand it.
Totally. And in that way it kind of borders, if not kind of teeters, if not falls on the side of being a bit racist, as though drawing on, I initially called it a trope, which it does still function in that there's other stories and mythologies where you would also expect to see, figures of wisdom coming out of somewhere.
Yeah.
Not just what we consider, what am I trying to say? That isn't just a thing that you see indigenous cultures experiencing. You'd also see it maybe in like Greek mythology. Somebody would, a prophet appears from the forest or whatever.
Yeah, it's very much an archetype of real world cultures and fantasy.
Right. But you're so right in the way that the Ale are racialized and drawing so much on indigenous cultures without doing any type of legwork into these various rituals that are almost just serving as like signposts, like rituals and cultural things that are just like serving as signposts. It starts to feel a bit more like a stereotype. Like we're supposed to just accept that the Ale would have these rituals and something would come out of the wilderness to talk to Avienda. I don't know if it quite goes all the way there, given how much how many archetypes it's also playing off of, but it just feels really strange. And functionally, all it does is make Avienda think about something in a different way. And I'm like, she's already going to like the magical place where she will be taught lots of stuff and been given perspective. So like, why do we need this to give her this specific perspective when like she is going to the perspective place?
Yeah, I guess it feels like a little like infantilizing toward Avienda that she needs someone to like handhold her to this sort of epiphany that she is on her journey to coming to, when it feels very much like she should, like the point of her training and her apprenticeship should be that she should be able to come to these conclusions on her own.
Right.
Perhaps after like her experience in Ruidan, which we will get to later in this book. But Nakomi just seems completely unnecessary. It's a very weird and superfluous scene.
Yeah.
For basically no reason.
Yeah, because all we get from Nakomi is this, like, sort of stumbling through the philosophy that perhaps the Ale don't always need to live in the threefold land, that is not their destiny, that perhaps the threefold land was only, like, a testing ground for their true destiny, the waste. And it's like, okay, that feels a little weird, but...
Yeah, that's sort of bizarre, sort of like a manifest destiny sort of vibe going on here. Yeah, it's like Avienda starts this chapter. She's like, by the way, I didn't travel directly to Ruidan because I needed to get right with God.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Just like, fine, bestie, whatever you need.
So she's just like running through Ruidan, or not Ruidan, the waste, and she's just like, it's so good to be back because the wetlanders suck. It's just like the classic Ale point of view where it's like, boy, all the wetlanders are trash, all their customs are trash, they're such weaklings, and it's like, I don't know why we're still, I know why we're still covering this ground. It's because Robert Jordan doesn't know how to do character development. But, like, it's a little ridiculous, Avienda has had many more than most Ale, like, cultural opportunities to go out and see the world and learn that the wetlanders are not a huge, just conglomerate group. They are a variety of different peoples.
Yeah.
Whom she can have nuanced feelings about. But anyway, she's like, it'll be so great for the Ale after the last battle to just book it on back to the Ale Waste and live the rest of our lives there. Then she meets Nakomi, who just, like, pops out of nowhere and is like, hey, friend. Hey, girly. Maybe that's wrong, because the threefold land is called the threefold land because it's meant to, like, forge us into something for testing. And what's the test gonna be? And Avienda's like, the last battle. Nakomi's like, yeah, so after the last battle, we'll have proven ourselves, right? So we can just do whatever. And Avienda's like, whoa, that's insane, dog.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's, this is a complicated issue that I do think deserves, like, Avienda should be thinking about. Lots of our characters are thinking about the future after the last battle, and I think it would be valid for Avienda to be like, on the one hand, this is where my people grew up, and a lot of our culture and, like, identity is tied to this place and this environment specifically, and so we shouldn't just throw it away at the first opportunity. But also, maybe there are benefits to living to integrating with the rest of the world. And, like, that's not a decision Avienda can make for her entire people.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we're kind of acting like that.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, a thing that we can be thinking about that doesn't necessarily have to have answers.
No, not at all. Like, it's one of those issues where, like, there probably isn't a correct answer, and that's okay. Like, multiple truths can be correct and valid, to not overuse that word, but can be true and valid at once. So yeah, it's nice to see those types of questions being raised in a book that's about in a series that's about the quote-unquote apocalypse, to see people having enough hope and enough foresight to consider what comes after. You know, the last battle isn't technically an apocalypse, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I just wish there wasn't, like, this attitude prevailing in this book, and maybe this is just in books generally, that, like, if a character thinks about something, then it has to be resolved.
Right.
Because what Avienda is going to go through in Ruidaean and throughout the next book is going to be like, okay, we are going to checkmark resolve what's up with the ale. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think we need to do that.
No.
I'm comfortable, like, leaving this series being like, the ale have definitely changed as a group of people, and they have a rich future ahead of them, and I hope it goes interesting places, but wherever it goes, frankly, it's none of my business because the series is over.
Totally, and I think there's a lot of, like, both narrative value and, like, if we talk about the sort of, like, personal enrichment you gain from reading anything, like, there's a lot of value from that aspect when you read a book that leaves you with questions and things to think about. It's just, again, narratively, it means you've built a really rich story with lots of things that are going on for it that are not necessarily narrative focused. And that's really exciting, and that means you've done your craft really well. Mm-hmm. And in the, like, enrichment side of things, like, reading is excellent for considering various perspectives, and when a book prompts you to think about something rather than giving you the answer, I don't know, that's just one of the good parts about reading.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if the question is like, yeah, what do we do with, even if it's about a fantasy desert land and what that means culturally and environmentally and, like, the functionality of its lack of resources, it's interesting.
Yeah. So interesting. Wish it kind of wasn't going where it's going, but we'll get to that when we get there. Overall,
I'm sure it will end up being somehow racist. I don't know.
I shan't spoil it for you.
I'm just guessing.
I shan't spoil it. But super weird scene. Dunno.
Avienda's eating, like, a lizard or a turtle or
she's
something.
Like a shellback, so I was like, is this just, fantasy a turtle?
Yeah, are you just eating, like, a box turtle?
Okay.
That's fine, you're in the desert, but, like, she's just, like, sitting there roasting this reptile or whatever, and just a lady comes
very
up
Mad
with...
Max eats a raw two-headed lizard vibes. You're
just
like, bestie?
Hello?
If this is you thriving, then okay, good for you. Couldn't be me, though. We then switch over to Perrin, who's, like, having a bad time. Mentally, the way he always does. The whole army has moved positions. They are now in a totally different, random place. Everyone's kind of settling down. And Perrin's just, like, gazing into the middle distance. Who am I?
Yeah.
Very Zoolander.
Sure.
Who am I? And Fail comes up to him and is like, the vibes you're giving off right now are so rancid, and everyone's mega stressed about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't know what to tell you, Fail. I feel mega rancid. It's just how it is. And she's like, okay, well, you're a leader of men, so please pull it together.
Could you at least do this, like, in private?
Yeah, and he's like, no, I need to make an exhibition of my feelings to prove it. I'm going to go do some blacksmithing just to, like, once again, get right with God.
Yeah.
On Perrin's walk with Christ, blacksmithing is a necessary component. So he goes up to the, little makeshift forge that they've got for making horseshoes and whatever. On his way, he's like, hey, military boys, can you show me, like, maps of where... This is very confusing, by the way. It's like the whole Perrin has traveled away the White Cloaks are still on the road that they were on. It took me until Perrin literally spelled it out a couple chapters from now to understand what was going on. But he's like, bring me some maps. Meaning maps of the road and the area that they would have been on if they had not teleported away. So they bring it over, and Perrin's like, where is the best spot for an ambush on this road? And they're like, here, it's both the obvious place for camping, like it's a good position for that, and also a very good place to get surprise attacked and murdered. And Perrin's like, Then he starts blacksmithing. He's just making shit and also vibing and thinking about himself and his feelings and whatnot. I shan't bore you with the details because we have really, really laboriously covered this ground already. But basically, while he's in the process of doing this and making something, spoiler alert, it's a hammer, and it's fucking obvious that it'll be a hammer. I don't know why it has to be a mystery.
It's the world's biggest hammer.
Yeah. He describes it, and I'm like, yo.
He's like, it's 4 feet long, and I'm like, that's almost as tall as me.
Yeah. What the fuck
What are you doing with that?
Anyway, at some point, Niald, who's a go-getter, is like, I can jump in and do some magic, to heat the metal.
Yeah, the coals aren't getting hot enough, or when Perrin's like mad about it, or whatever.
Dissatisfied with the quality of this, to-go forge.
Yeah, IKEA Pack-It-Up Forge. Yeah.
He's like, rah, 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 and Niald's like, I can do that with magic. So he starts doing that, and Perrin's like, oh, this is great. Magic forging is fucking awesome. And so we're getting Perrin's thought process intercut with Grady being like, hey Niald, what the fuck are you doing? And Niald's like, IDK dog, but it feels right, though. I love it.
Which is how we know Taverin is at work here.
And magic. Something is happening magically.
Yeah.
Then Niald's like, quick, I need a circle to get more power. Perrin is totally ignoring.
He's like, that's not my business.
And he's like, that's not my business, whatever magic is happening. So Niald's doing stuff with the power. Perrin forges this big ass hammer, including he gets a little symbol of a little wolf in flight on it to commemorate Hopper. And I'm sure dead Hopper would love to know that he is now Perrin's hammer.
Yeah.
In spirit. Perrin thinks about that hammer more than he thinks about most things, so really it's quite a sweet gesture.
Yeah, it is very cute. It's funny, too. If anyone else was looking at the hammer and be like, why is there a flying wolf? Why is there a
wolf?
What's going on?
It'd be like, it's a whole thing.
Don't worry about it.
Don't ask him about it. He'll start crying. Yeah. But he forges this hammer. Niald, keels over. And Perrin's like, you know what? I have come to a decision, which is that I am going to be myself and be a leader because that's what, I don't know.
It's like, okay, good.
Okay, great. He's like, hey, boy. I don't know, some Two Rivers kid. He's like, did you really throw away all the banners? And this kid's like, no. Perrin's like, okay, go get the last one. And this kid's like, here you go, thinking Perrin's gonna fucking set it on fire in front of them all to kill all their hopes and dreams. Right. But Perrin's like, no, you guys are right. Till the last battle, if you want to stick with me, then I've got you. I will be your leader. And they're like, huzzah. And Perrin's like, so, Niald, what the fuck was up with that? And Niald's like, I don't know, bestie. I just felt it in my bones.
It was the muse.
The muse called to me.
Sing to me.
Sing to me, Paolo. They also name the hammer, and think of the big magic hammer you know from your stories, everyone. What's its name? I'll give you a hint about the name of Perrin's hammer. It's very similar.
Mjolnir.
Yeah, it's like Malnir.
Malnir.
Or something. But it means he who soars. Yeah. Or Hopper, more or less.
It's very sweet.
But Perrin also is like, hey, Grady and Niald, let's get traveling. We are going to go to this spot where he also, earlier sent out scouts to see if where the White Cloaks were. They reported that the White Cloaks are in that very spot. So Perrin's like, let's get going. Berylane has a freak out because she thinks that Perrin is going to go murder
Galad.
Galad.
She doesn't really care about the White Cloaks as a whole, which is relatable. But she's like, what about my weird hot crush?
Yeah, she's like, you can kill all the others just as long as the guy I'm into stays alive.
And then Berylene, as usual, proceeds to say the most I am not all right things on the entire planet. Because Fail's like, damn, you really can pick him, girl. When she's like, you can't let him kill Galad. And Berline's like, I think Fail makes some comment that, like, at least he's not married this time or whatever.
Yeah.
And Berline's like, well, Perrin was promised to me.
And Fail's like... Fail, like, looks at the camera and is like, a worm?
Yeah. Everyone reading this is like, you are deranged.
Yeah, and then Berylene goes over. We're all thinking, like, did we miss some sort of... Way back in flip back 3,000 pages to the Shadow Rising. Hey, what?
Yeah.
What? How could she have misconstrued this? And she's like, well, I guess he wasn't actually promised to me. I was just picking up on subtext that the Dragon Reborn wasn't into me, so I needed to go after one of his close friends, and I chose Perrin because Matt, although single, was by far the inferior option.
Yeah.
She's like, and clearly he wants us to be together because he sent me along with Perrin on this little mish. Mm-hmm. And Fail's like, okay, that's unhinged. Like, girl. She's like, what I think you're failing to understand is that both Perrin and Rand are farmers.
Yeah.
And aren't, like, enmeshed in the game of houses the way you were clearly operating. Like, your brain has literally been rotted by the political machinations.
Yeah.
That are your entire worldview. And Berline's like, well, obviously it doesn't matter now. Like, whatever, because I have sworn off Perrin and now I'm just into Galad. And Fail's like, he's not a great political match. And Berline's like, no, yeah, because he's the half brother of the Queen of Andor. So actually it's a great political match. I'll be still tied to the Dragon Reborn that way through Elaine, not knowing that Galad and Rand are half brothers.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure would get her even hornier.
Right.
Anyway, she's like, please promise me that we won't let Perrin go ambush the White Cloaks. And Fail's like, I really don't think that's what's going on here, but fair enough. Perrin is not communicating what his plans are, so sure, I'll agree. Cut to Galad, who is just camping with the White Cloaks. Byre comes in and is like, you did a big mistake. And Galad's like, I didn't. Actually, I mean, they start getting attacked. I can't remember.
No, they're basically in this confusing geographical setup where, like, there's basically, like, a plateau or something.
Right above them.
And they start seeing all of Perrin's guys come in with their, like, huge longbows or whatever, and Byre's like, we're fucked.
The Huns on the ridge in
Mulan. Yeah.
Byre's like, we're fucked. You should have killed him when you had the chance. And Galad's like, I don't think so. Like, I made my choice. He can make his choice. That is how the world works. But whatever, Byre. Let's get ready to respond to this attack. Up on the plateau, Perrin's, like, looking out with his wolf eyes and is like, okay, I need the ladies to retreat when I give the command, and we're gonna do this stuff. Fail and Berylene are like, why would you attack the White Cloaks? I mean, I know why you would attack the White Cloaks. It's a very hilariously cutthroat move.
Yeah.
And I fully support it.
100%.
It would have been so hilarious if Perrin was like, I have, had my self-actualization apotheosis moment.
And
my first decision will be to murder all the White Cloaks.
Yeah, I've had enough of these guys. They're not really doing a whole lot for anybody, and they're morally bankrupt, so.
Yeah. Morally bankrupt with a god complex. Great combo.
Best
for people
combo.
to have, yeah. So, he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not gonna attack the White Cloaks. There's a bunch of Trollocs and Myrddraal coming out there. And, you know, a bunch of Trollocs and Myrddraal pop literally out of the ground.
Yeah, and everyone's like, what?
Everyone's like, excuse me? And also, Fail's like, that's so great, bestie. I love you so much. Thanks for not attacking the White Cloaks, and leaves. But if I was Fail, I would be like, Perrin, you have no right to act surprised.
That's
what we assumed you were doing because you simply did not tell us what was going on.
Didn't communicate to a single living soul. You didn't communicate to the reader. So when Perrin lays out his fucking Hercule Poirot checkmate about how he pieced together this attack, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay, bestie.
Sure, I guess if you say so. You knew the Trollocs were going to be there and they're there. Whatever.
Yeah, as Perrin will relate to Galad in a minute, he figured that there was going to be an ambush at this part because it was the logical next place for his army to go. And of course, everyone's always out to get Perrin. Because that, the Dream Spike was designed to keep them traveling by foot along this very obvious road. Perrin's like, furthermore, all of our travel delays and things going on have sort of led us to this point. Now, obviously, I got away, but they were clearly, the Forsaken or whoever were clearly willing to settle for the White Cloaks, who will be a force at the last battle, presumably. So I deduced. My name is Hercule Poirot. He's like, it's fine. I figured we could go save the White Cloaks. Meanwhile, the White Cloaks realize about the Trollocs and the Myrddraal and are like, oh my gosh, and they are having a bad time, you guys. And Galad falls off his horse and breaks his ankle, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. Perrin is like, let's lead a charge down to rescue them, literally. And one of his military guys, I can never keep them straight, Argonda or whoever, is like, I want to kiss you on the mouth for this. I love a charge.
Yeah. He's like, this battle is making me really hot and bothered.
He's like,
because he's like,
cavalry charge? You're speaking my language.
There's a cavalry charge. We have the high ground. There's superior
He's
position.
Like, oh my god.
It's like everything about this is super sexy.
Talk dirty to me, please.
Yeah. And
cavalry. Ooh.
You're like, okay, Argonda, Galene, whoever you are, why are you so weird?
Go to therapy, my friend.
What the fuck?
Aaron's like, okay, I'll unpack that later. He goes down and like physically rescues Galad from being impaled or whatever, and is like, here, get on my horse. Which, is just like, okay, very damsel in distress coded of you.
Yeah.
Again, he should have lifted Galad in his burly arms.
Yeah.
Galad daintily
swoons over his broken ankle.
But alas. Instead, what we get is Byre trying to stab Perrin in the back.
Yeah.
And Bornhald, who has also been having a come-to-Jesus moment, is like, ugh, and kills Byre. It's a very, Perrin v. Aram callback.
Yeah.
And I wish that the authors had done more with that.
Uh-huh.
Have Perrin have any sort of interaction with Bornhald after this or something. I don't know what I would have had them do, but I think it's a very interesting, foil moment, because you have Byre, who's this crazy zealot, which is very similar to Aram.
Mm-hmm.
And having to be killed by someone who they considered a friend. The parallels are just draw themselves.
The parallels are there. What is it about Perrin that just, attracts the zealots, man?
Yeah, I don't know why his little plot has been so rich with this. Well, he was forging the hammer. He did have his little moment where he was like, what happened with Aram was due to my failure of leadership, and my bad, homie.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, because he's like, can't do anything about it now, which is technically true, but it's like, I don't know, you could try to do something. Give money to his family.
You can think about it a little more.
Think about him, honor him in some way.
Yeah, have a funeral or something.
Keep him in your memory.
Faye and her girly friends had a weird funeral ritual for their literal, in some cases, rapists. So yeah. I feel like having a funeral for Aram would be appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it's interesting to watch the sort of Bornhald saga. He's also a very fascinating character to me.
He's very annoying.
Yeah,
through most of the book.
Yeah.
Most of the series, I mean. So it's interesting to have him suddenly have character development in this book, and I would argue, again, it's far too far apart.
Right.
You know, so it's hard to... I happen to be working on graffitiing a copy of The Shadow Rising, which Bornhold is in extensively in the Two Rivers, and I'm like, God, he's fucking annoying.
He's annoying.
So I think it would have been more appropriate if these two events had been closer together, but I agree. It's interesting to have Bornhold be like, I thought this guy killed my dad. Turns out he didn't, and my friend was lying to me. So now I have to kill my friend, which is an extreme thing to happen, but that doesn't mean I'm going to feel, like, happy and in love with that dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a complicated cocktail of emotions, Bornhold.
Yeah.
I hope you do not descend into alcoholism again. I hope you and Galad, you know, kiss about it or something. Whatever.
Could help.
Yeah, could help.
Galad, speaking of kind of like people's becoming disillusioned with the White Cloaks, Galad is in the middle of this battle, and the White Cloaks are an absolute fucking shit show. Like, there's 20,000 of them, Galad is giving his orders, and they all just, like, completely just fucking lose it when faced with Trollocs, which they're like, we didn't even believe these were real, or whatever, because the White Cloaks, like, lots of masculine posturing, haven't actually done any of the hard stuff that they claim to be talking about, like fighting the Shadow.
Yeah, they've been murdering women and children, so...
Yeah, so to them, there's like, this is...
a real fight?
Yeah.
They're just classic bullies being faced with bullies. Yeah, and Galad has this line where he's like, oh, the White Cloaks are just regular people.
Yeah.
They're not, like, by being White Cloaks, more powerful. Their goodness does not elevate their martial prowess.
Yeah, they're not, like, divinely protected. Yeah. We're not looking out and seeing a bunch of, like, you know, holy warriors.
Yeah, which arguably is a more important moment to happen for Galad than almost literally everything prior to it in this book. Like, it's important for Galad just to, like, lose a little bit of faith and to be like, well, I haven't actually had to reckon with the organization that I've tied myself to. Like, Galad has been doing a little bit of reckoning with his own sense of morality, his own superiority complex, but it's good to apply that to the people around him that he's tied himself to.
Right. So, for all we can say that it's, like, frustrating that Galad needs to have this moment at all, I do think these moments where people become a little bit disillusioned or a little bit deprogrammed are just, like, really valuable things to consider. Again, not that everything has to have real world consequences, but when thinking about, like, high control groups or propaganda or things like that, if you can just get people to just have that one moment where they're like, these pieces aren't adding up, that can be really helpful. So,
yeah, it would have been really cool if Galad's plot line had been sort of along the veins of having someone be deprogrammed.
Yeah.
Like, if Galad had either been in control of the White Cloaks or if we'd been following his journey earlier and we could have seen him progressing away from that, that would have been really interesting, because someone who joins a cult, realizes the cult ain't shit, and then becomes the leader of the cult is a pretty fascinating journey for someone to take. So it's a little sad that that doesn't follow that order.
Yeah, it's also, we've talked in previous episodes about kind of talking about things that foil Aram and how Galad is in some ways kind of like a foil or a narrative double of Aram, and these kind of like going to extremist beliefs as like a young man who's not totally certain of his place in the world. So like, whereas Aram never got the chance to be deprogrammed from the Massima cult and really went to the unfortunate extremes of what it meant to believe in him and listen to him. Like, it would be interesting to see that aspect of Galad's character and plotline be highlighted more, but no,
agreed. We do get a callback to the long-forgotten portal stones. That's where Perrin thinks the Trollocs are coming from. He's like, portal stones? And we were like, the what? I haven't read about those since book 4, baby.
Yeah.
Okay. But The Perrin Galad plot is resolved by after Perrin rescues Galad. Galad is like, I pronounce judgment. It's that you have to pay a fine to the families of the men you killed and fight in the last battle. And Perrin's like, done deal, baby.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
And then they kissed.
And then they
with tongue.
And then they fucked on the battlefield.
Then they made sweet, sweet love.
Yeah, that would have been so great if Brandon and Robert weren't cowards.
If they weren't cowards, they're like, the important resolution to any plotline is gay kissing.
Yeah, what about the Fail, Barrelane, Perrin,
Galad,
love,
Polycule.
Polycule. Yeah, that could have been incredible.
Yeah, I think that would have been really iconic.
But that's those chapters, I guess. The battle is ongoing when we leave them, but it is sort of the vibe is the tides have turned.
Yeah, we'll win.
Now that,
blah, blah, blah.
Now that Perrin has joined. Our next section will be jumping around quite a bit, but we'll mostly follow Perrin and Galad again as in sort of the aftermath of this and as they travel to Andor. That's what's on the docket. My feelings at the end of this chapter are some confusion over the Nakomi thing.
Yeah.
And otherwise pretty neutral, I guess. Happy a little about hammers.
Okay, happy, confused. I don't have a neutral one yet, so I'll add that. Happy, confused, and neutral. That's okay.
What do you feel?
I don't know.
Dead inside.
Yeah.
Resigned.
Just kind of.
That's kind of in the neutral.
Yeah, I'm probably neutral. Like, these chapters were fine. I do like magic hammers. I feel like everything in Wheel of Time is like this, where it's like we get the coolest fucking scene, and it's totally just like sidelined for whatever the male characters are complaining about in the moment. Like, why wasn't the whole scene about? Why wasn't this from Niald's perspective?
Yeah, I
you know?
wanted to know what like Niald was actually doing.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted the hammer to have a cooler magical effect.
So
Again, R.I.P.
It raises the dead.
Yeah.
That'd be fucking sweet.
Revivify
Perrin's a necromancer
spell.
now.
Oh my god. Yeah. Or like raises wolves from the dead.
Ghost
Copper
wolves.
comes back.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Okay.
That would be fucking sick.
Thanks for listening. Thanks to Glenn and Mackenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media. You have a sign off?
Yeah, our apartment building has kind of like an office space downstairs where you can, like, on the main first floor where you can go and, like, there's not computers or anything. There's, like, the communal printer and just, like, workstations. And I've been going down there because I've just, like, in the winter in particular, just obviously struggle more mentally, and I've just not been being very productive, and I'm trying to, like, establish little rituals that help myself feel like we're working, you know, a different environment. And every time I go down there, the weirdest fucking shit happens to me. Like, I just overhear, things aren't happening to me, I just overhear the weirdest things. I'm like, I am always down there basically by myself, so I don't know if I'm, like, the only person who uses this. But last night I was down there, just, like, writing, doing my thing, and this person comes and, like, sits, and I couldn't see them the way that it's structured, comes and sits, and I could not tell you which of these possibilities is true, but she seemed to be speaking just, like, what were either, like, weird homework for some type of trade school, or, like, canned automatic menu responses for a hotel, because I would just hear her, like, over and over again be like, yes, we have a heated pool, and thank you so much for staying with us, and, you know, just, like, I was like, what? I could not tell you. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, what?
I don't know. It sounded like like if you were to, like, somehow call a big hotel chain, and it would be like, speak to
the menu.
Luggage information.
God, I guess
concierge
those
info.
People had jobs, like that was a job.
Yeah, I don't know if it was, or, like, what was going on. Either that, or she was scamming people. Which
that could be. Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a great week.
Bye.
Goodbye.